There's a strange thing about pain. It doesn't just visit once and leave. It circles back, shows up in new clothes, and knocks on the same emotional doors. We think we've moved on, only to realize we're standing in a very familiar place, wondering how we ended up here again. And we say to ourselves, why does this keep happening to me? But the real question isn't why life keeps hurting us, it's why we keep walking the same road, expecting a different destination. When we don't heal the pain of our past, we unknowingly drag it into our present. The heartbreak you never processed, the rejection you never understood, the failure you never forgave yourself for, these things don't vanish with time. They bury themselves deep in the corners of your mind and quietly begin to shape your decisions, your relationships, your self-worth. You start making choices not from clarity but from fear. You stay in places that don't serve you because leaving feels unfamiliar. You go back to people who break you because their presence feels like home, even if it's hurting you. The truth is, we keep repeating the same mistakes because familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar healing. It's strange, but sometimes suffering becomes our comfort zone. The mind would rather stay where it knows what to expect, even if that means expecting disappointment. That job you hate but won't leave, that habit you know is toxic but can't quit, that person who keeps letting you down but you still give one more chance. Not because we enjoy pain, but because it feels like we deserve it, or we're afraid of who we'll be without it. But here's something powerful. Pain is not punishment. It's a messenger. Every time you're triggered, every time life brings you back to the same scenario, it's whispering, there's something here you haven't faced yet. It's not about being weak or broken. It's about being unaware. Until we see the pattern, we can't change it. And until we take responsibility, we can't heal it. Growth doesn't come from blaming your parents, your ex, your boss, or the world. Growth begins when you say, I played a role in this, and now I choose differently. That choice, the decision to stop reacting and start responding, that's the beginning of real freedom. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments, when you pause before repeating a mistake, when you choose peace over chaos, when you sit with your pain instead of numbing it. Healing isn't a destination. It's a daily decision to break the cycle by showing up with awareness, honesty, and compassion. Because you can't change your past, but you can stop it from writing your future. And that is how the cycle ends, not by force. Not by pretending it didn't happen, but by choosing to see yourself clearly, love yourself deeply, and walk forward bravely. When we go through pain, especially the kind that lingers, heartbreak, betrayal, failure, childhood wounds, we often try to move on quickly. We distract ourselves, we stay busy, we convince ourselves that time will heal it all. But pain doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. In fact, the more we suppress it, the deeper it roots itself into our lives. That unhealed pain becomes the quiet force behind many of our choices. It starts shaping the way we see ourselves, the people we trust, and the risks we're willing to take. And without even realizing it, we start living in patterns built by that old pain. It's like trying to build a new home on a cracked foundation. No matter how beautiful the design is, it will keep breaking until we fix what lies beneath. Our past wounds become the blueprint, and from that blueprint, we keep creating similar situations over and over again. We end up choosing the same kind of relationships, the same kinds of arguments, the same outcomes, not because we want to suffer, but because we're still operating from a place that hasn't healed. Have you ever wondered why you keep attracting emotionally unavailable people? Or why you sabotage your own success just as you're about to reach a breakthrough? It's not bad luck. It's not fate working against you. It's the unconscious mind trying to recreate familiar experiences, even if those experiences are painful. That's what unhealed wounds do. They don't stay in the past. They echo into our present. And here's the thing. most people don't even realize this is happening. They think they're just unlucky in love, unlucky in life, or cursed to repeat the same struggles. But the truth is, until we pause and ask ourselves, where did this pattern begin, we'll never break free from it. Healing starts with awareness, with the courage to sit with that old pain and say, I see you, I hear you, and I'm ready to understand you. Because only when we acknowledge the wound can we begin to change the pattern. And once we begin to heal, we stop building from brokenness and start creating from wholeness. That's when life begins to shift not outside, but within. And that internal shift becomes the key to ending the cycle once and for all. There's something deeply human about clinging to what we know even when it hurts. The familiar, even if it's painful, feels safer than the unknown. It's not that we enjoy suffering, but there's a strange comfort in knowing what to expect. You've been through heartbreak before, so you know how it feels. You've lived with disappointment, so you know how to brace for it. But joy, stability, true love, real peace, those things are unfamiliar territories, and unfamiliarity makes the heart anxious. So instead of reaching for healing, we reach back to what we already understand, even if it breaks us again. Think about how many people return to relationships that have already torn them apart. They tell themselves it's love, or that it might be different this time. But beneath that hope is a fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of starting over, the fear of stepping into a version of life they've never seen before. The pain, although heavy, is predictable, and that predictability feels like control. That's why we choose it again and again, not because it's good for us, but because it's known. Healing, on the other hand, demands we step into uncertainty. It asks us to let go of patterns we've lived in for years. It asks us to walk away from things that once made us feel seen, even if they were hurting us. And most of all, it asks us to face ourselves, to sit with the silence, to rebuild our sense of worth from scratch. That's scary. That's why so many people stay stuck. Because healing requires a leap into unfamiliar waters, while pain offers the illusion of solid ground. But here's what we forget: the comfort we feel in pain isn't real comfort. It's just routine. It's a cycle we've become emotionally conditioned to, and the longer we stay in it, the more it convinces us that we can't live without it. But we can. We can choose the path that looks harder at first, because on the other side of that discomfort is growth. There is peace in the unknown. There is strength in rebuilding. And there is freedom in choosing something new even if it scares us. The life you want won't be found in old pain. It begins the moment you stop settling for what's familiar and start trusting what's possible. Life has a way of bringing us full circle. We find ourselves in situations that feel eerily familiar, the same kind of argument with a different person, the same feeling of being overlooked, the same frustration at work or in relationships. And we wonder, why does this keep happening to me? But the truth is, these moments aren't accidents. They're not coincidences. They're emotional triggers, signals from within calling our attention to something unresolved, something we haven't yet healed or learned. Triggers are like emotional echoes. They remind us of old pain, past rejection, or long buried fear. When someone ignores your message, it might not just be about them, it might be awakening an old memory of feeling unimportant. When you feel jealous or insecure in a relationship, it might not be about the present moment, it could be a wound from years ago, still tender, still unacknowledged. These emotional reactions aren't flaws, they're lessons that haven't been completed. And the universe, in its quiet wisdom, will keep bringing us the same lesson in different forms until we learn it, not to punish us, but to set us free. The same situation shows up, not because you're cursed, but because you're being invited to pause, reflect, and respond differently this time, to notice the pattern, to understand its root, to finally choose healing over habit. But most of us don't see it that way. We get caught in the emotion, we blame the other person, we shut down, we avoid, and by doing so, we miss the deeper opportunity that every trigger holds the opportunity to grow. That uncomfortable moment is a mirror. It's showing you what's still wounded, what still needs love, what still needs your attention. Awareness is the first step. When you feel triggered, ask yourself, where is this coming from? Have I felt this before? What is it trying to teach me? The answers may not come instantly, but the act of asking breaks the cycle. It brings light to what was hidden, and when you bring awareness to your pain, it loses its power to control you. You don't have to repeat the same mistakes forever. The moment you turn your triggers into teachers, everything begins to shift. Life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that unfolds for you. That's how we finally move forward, not by avoiding the lessons, but by learning them. When things go wrong, our first instinct is often to look outward. We point fingers, blame others, and tell ourselves that if they had acted differently, we wouldn't be in this position. It's comforting in a way. Blame creates distance between us and our pain. It gives us someone else to hold responsible. But blame, while easy, is also a trap. It keeps us stuck, because as long as someone else is the problem, we remain powerless to change anything. Accountability isn't about shame or self-punishment. It's about owning your role in your own life story. It's about recognizing that while you may not be at fault for what hurt you, you are responsible for how you choose to heal from it. There's a huge difference between fault and responsibility. You didn't choose to be betrayed. You didn't ask to be abandoned. You didn't invite the trauma. But now it's yours to carry. And the weight only lifts when you decide to face it with honesty. Taking accountability doesn't mean excusing others for their behavior. It means you stop waiting for them to fix it. You stop hoping they'll say sorry or make it right. Instead, you ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What patterns do I keep repeating? How can I grow from this pain? That's where your power begins. It's tempting to live in a victim mindset because it requires no change. But healing demands that we step into discomfort, that we reflect, that we ask hard questions, that we challenge our old beliefs. Maybe you stayed too long in a place that kept breaking you. Maybe you ignored the red flags because you were afraid of being alone. Maybe you lost yourself trying to be everything to someone who gave you nothing in return. When you own your choices, even the painful ones, you reclaim control over your life. This is where real growth happens, not in blaming others, but in rebuilding yourself. Accountability doesn't break you. It builds you. It says, I may have made mistakes, but I'm learning. I may have suffered, but I'm not staying there. And that shift in mindset is what turns wounds into wisdom and setbacks into stepping stones. Because in taking responsibility, you don't just change your story, you begin to rewrite it. Real transformation doesn't begin with grand gestures or dramatic life changes. It begins quietly in moments of awareness. When you catch yourself about to fall into the same old reaction, the same old pattern, and you pause, that pause is powerful. It's the space where change is born. Because before we can do better, we have to see better. And seeing ourselves clearly requires a rare kind of courage. The willingness to be honest without being harsh, to be aware without being ashamed. So many of us carry guilt for our past, for the times we settled, for the moments we broke our own hearts, for the chances we didn't take. And when we try to change from a place of shame, we only create more resistance. Shame tells us we're unworthy of growth. It whispers, you'll always be this way. But compassion says, you've made mistakes, but you're still worthy of peace. That gentle self-kindness isn't weakness, it's the foundation of strength. Self-awareness without compassion becomes self-criticism, and self-compassion without awareness becomes complacency. We need both. We need to see where we've gone wrong, not to judge ourselves, but to understand ourselves. Why did we keep choosing people who couldn't love us back? Why did we keep running from discomfort instead of sitting with it? Why did we stay silent when our voice mattered? These questions are not to punish, there to unlock the deeper truth of who we are and who we're becoming. The moment you start treating yourself like someone you're responsible for caring for, everything begins to shift. You start building habits not from a place of fear, but from a place of love. You begin to say no to what drains you and yes to what grows you. You begin to protect your energy, honor your time, and trust your inner voice. That's not ego, that's healing. Change doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. A commitment to show up for yourself even when it's uncomfortable. A promise to speak gently to yourself even when you fall short. Because when you lead with self-awareness and compassion, you break the cycle not just for yourself, but for every version of you that once believed you couldn't. That's how the healing begins, one conscious, kind choice at a time. The cycle of pain doesn't end by accident. It ends with intention. It ends when we stop running from our wounds and start listening to what they're trying to teach us. It ends when we stop choosing what's familiar and begin to trust what's healthy. Every mistake we've repeated wasn't a failure, it was a sign, a mirror, a lesson we weren't ready to learn until now. The moment we choose awareness over avoidance, accountability over blame, and compassion over criticism, we begin to reclaim our power. We are not defined by the pain we've been through, but by the courage we show in breaking free from it. Healing is not about forgetting the past, it's about refusing to live from it. And once we choose to rise above the pattern, we create a new one rooted in growth, in truth, and in freedom. That is how we begin again. That is how we break the cycle.